Hello and welcome to The Big Picture. Much has been discussed and debated about black money within the country and abroad for some years now. The NDA government, it may be recalled, came to power with one of the major promises to bring back black money stashed abroad. As the government is about to celebrate its 1 year in office, it has managed to get a legislation passed in both houses of parliament aimed at curbing and punishing those who hold illegal foreign income and assets abroad. Known as the Black Money Bill, it seeks to curb and punish people who seek to conceal their foreign income and assets. The legislation has harsh penalties including rigorous imprisonment up to 10 years, penalties which can go up to 3 times of the tax in case of repeated offenders, among others. The Act also seeks to give a one-time opportunity for those who have already concealed income and assets to come clean. However, though the bill has been passed in both houses with near unanimity, there are still concerns being expressed about certain provisions of the Act apart from its efficacy. Today we will discuss how efficacious this new legislation will be in acting as a deterrent and what are the lacunae, if any, which still exists and how far it will help in combating the menace of black money. To discuss this, I have with me Prof. Arun Kumar, an expert on black money from the Center of Economic Studies and Planning at the JNU, Ajay, former Secretary, Ministry of Industries and Commerce, Government of India, and S.K. Sarkar, a leading chartered accountant and Chairman, Economic Affairs Committee, PhD, Chamber of Commerce. Welcome to all of you. Professor Arun Kumar, we had discussed about this bill some time back on the same show. Yes. Now that the bill has been passed in both houses,
correct,
you think that this law which has been passed will be able to bring back money which has already been stashed abroad?
You know, it's a deterrent. So it may have an effect in the future, but the money that has gone abroad, that I think it will have really very little impact on. Because the main question is you can have a lot of provisions about penalties, etc. But unless you can track that money, unless you can trace where that money is, you cannot implement those penalties. So the problem is that when the money goes out from India, except for charlatans who may be new to the thing, money is layered and taken out through several, there are about 90 tax havens. So money goes from one tax haven to the next, and therefore the real beneficiary of the final account is hidden. And that's why when you ask the Swiss authorities, they will tell you that the largest amount of deposits from Britishers because they own the largest number of tax havens. And they say the Indians only have 14,000 crores of rupees there because that's the legitimate money most likely. There may be some people, like in the HSBC case, some people have been caught. But otherwise, Indians who are clever, who have been taking the money out for a long time, they have developed this mechanism of layering and other things. So the main question is, can you track the money?
So this Act, does it provide for tracking this kind of...
No, it doesn't. And that's where there's the big lacuna in the Act, that there is no provision for tracking it. Like, say, the US is now implementing the FACTA, which they are getting everybody to sign. There are provisions that if you do not disclose the income of American citizens in your financial institutions, then they'll have penalties and then they will take you to task, etc., etc. So you have to build in provisions into your bill. So in a sense, there's a big escape mechanism that has been provided. And the 6 months time that will be given as an amnesty, that you can declare your money which you have taken out earlier, could be used by those people who've taken it out in their own name. But there also, because there has been a lot of time that has elapsed, and we hear that Swiss banks have opened accounts and opened branches in Singapore and in Dubai, probably the money is already gone, which may have been in the direct name of some people who could have been tracked through some of these. So in other words, I do not see any provision in this bill which would actually track it, where the money is, how much that money is, and then try to get it back. So therefore
Mr. Dua, would you agree with that?
I think broadly I would. This is a first attempt to tax foreign income and foreign assets. So to that extent, I would laud the attempt because we didn't earlier. The provision, the Act
the existing Income Tax Act didn't have any provisions for this?
Not specifically about foreign income. So from 2016, 1st April 2016, the declarations, etc., would have to be made under the new law. Which once
so a person, if he has foreign income, foreign assets, and also has income in India and assets in India, he has to declare differently.
Absolutely, from next year onwards. So I think that's a good provision. And that's the first attempt. Also, I would laud the fact that because it's the first time we are making a concerted attempt, there is a window. I'm not calling it amnesty because it is not an amnesty, but it is giving.
It amounts to amnesty.
Not
virtually.
quite. That's a point I think which we'll come to.
Okay.
All that's being said is that if you have an asset outside, if you have an income, you haven't declared it, there will be a window of 2 months for you to declare that you have such and such, disclose the asset or the income, and then you get 6 months to pay the tax. So that is as far as if the fault has been not declaring it.
No, one second. One second. One more clarification.
Please.
So far, all these years, what would people do? People who were getting the foreign income and they had foreign assets, were they declaring it, or were they expected to declare it as part of their normal income tax returns, or how were they supposed to?
No, they were expected to declare it, but they could take a benefit of double tax avoidance agreement, saying some other place was lower, we paid it there, not here. But a declaration of foreign asset, a declaration of foreign account was necessary, which hadn't been done. So now if you do that, you pay only within that window, declare it within 2 months and 6 months thereafter to pay it, you pay only 30% penalty. But if you don't avail of this window, then the penalty is as high as 90%. And the 10-year imprisonment deterrent. The important point being made is that this is as far as disclosures were not made. The question is, are we going to be, with this act, able, or once it becomes presidential assent is received and it becomes an act, are we going to be able to get back the money?
Exactly.
Which has gone abroad? Right. I'm not quite sure whether that would happen because it required several other things.
So this act will only act as a future deterrent.
And it will work well for those who had legitimately taken their income out or who can explain how their income, how they had got that asset or their income. But those who have layered it, the word which was just used, and also who have done it surreptitiously. They could be caught under FEMA, they could be caught under money laundering or any other act. I don't think unless they are able to handle these provisions of these laws, that they will bring back their money. To that extent, the so-called $463 billion of inflows outside, or what Mr. Ramjit Malani yesterday said in Supreme Court, 70 lakh crore rupees which are there, those are not going to come back.
That's not going to come back. And Mr. Sarkar, how do you look at this? As a chartered accountant, you think that this bill is going to help people who are earning legitimate income abroad, who have legitimate assets abroad, and what will happen to those who have illegitimate and illegal income and assets?
Well, I have my doubts. See, if you look at the law as it stands today, I mean, let's go a little before the bill, the black money bill. The Income Tax Act does say that if you are a resident of this country, you have to declare your global income, which means wherever you earn your income, not only in India, even if you earn it outside, you will have to declare it as part of your income. So those things
declare it and pay taxes on that.
Absolutely, yes. Absolutely, and taxes at the Indian rate.
Okay.
But of course, taking advantage of any double taxation benefits that you might get if you have income in a country with which India has an agreement. But you see, those disclosures which have taken place have been very minimal. I mean, they have not been very substantial by any standards. If you look at CBDT, which is Central Board of Direct Taxes, which looks after income tax in India, if you look at their administration, shall I say, in 2013-14, what was unaccounted money which they could detect was just 7,000 crores, which is nothing. And if you look at 14-15, and I'm giving you a figure up to 15th of February, which is 4,456 crores. Now, these are figures which are not even a drop in the ocean for a country of our size. So if you look at these kind of situations, it becomes very, very difficult to monitor what is happening outside. Now, look at what happened with the Swiss government. The Swiss government said that no fishing expeditions.
Right.
What you have to tell us is that give us the name. Yeah, give us the name of that individual who has an account here. And if he has an account, which is that account? And you would also have to tell us that this money has been earned by means which are not very legal. Now, all these factors, when you combine together, Indians, I don't think the Indian authorities are in a position to give that precise information which is required so that you can get that money back. Now, these are factors. And then...
no, that's the question is whether this act provides for any such thing. Both of them feel that, it doesn't provide.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It is a deterrent in the sense as that there's a stick which is being put out, but it is not going to help you to get money into India, because the jurisdictional factor will always play a role. If I have foreign assets, and what can you do to me? I mean, supposing I don't want to bring it into India,
and you don't want to declare it.
I don't want to declare it. I don't want to bring it in India. I don't have that nationalistic fervor.
Yeah.
So what happens in that case? What can you do? Even in India, if you look at attachment of properties, it is not possible just because you have got a court order. You have to. Even after the court order, the law provides that you have to go to the district magistrate, and the district magistrate has to be satisfied that this is a property which can be attached, which takes, of course, he can't overrule.
This thing, Cabinet has approved today, by the way, Binami Transactions Bill. In fact, they have approved
domestic black money.
Huh?
That is domestic
black money.
To talk about domestic black money. Prof. Arun, Kumar.
What I wanted to say is that let's look at the case in the US, where UBS was fined $780 million and Credit Suisse was fined $2 billion. There, one honest judge, one honest income tax officer, they tracked Mr. Birkenfeld, who was traveling back and forth, and on that basis, they implemented this. The Swiss government was saying that you're fishing expedition, that you're doing this, and the entire financial system will collapse, etc. The judge said, if by tomorrow you don't agree, I'll order the US government to nationalize UBS Bank. And the next day they settle. So in other words, you see, there are two things that have happened which are important. One is how much political will does the government have to crack down on the multinational banks, which, as the HSBC case shows, was acting as a hawala operator. And large number of multinational banks and Indian private banks act as hawala operators for the high net worth.
That is the point. That is the point which I have tried to ask.
Banking secrecy is very important here.
Does this bill, does this new proposed act, does it have provisions where it will punish or take action against banks or any institution which is going to help, which is helping people in stashing money abroad?
No, none that I see in the bill as it stands. And that's what I was giving the example of FATCA, that the US is implementing provisions where they actually are going to take actions against the financial institutions as well. So those provisions are not there. That's point number one. Second is, you see, in India we have large number of laws, but the laws are typically violated. Laws are typically not implemented. And I'd like to add that there have been at least 40 committees and commissions that have gone into different aspects of the black economy from 1948 onwards. So whether you have the Vanchu Committee or the Dagli Committee or the L.K. Jha Committee, the latest being the Pranab Mukherjee, the white paper on black money, and the 3 reports that the 3 institutes have written, which there apparently is no consensus for the last 3 years, and that's why they're not released. So they have made thousands of suggestions, and hundreds have been implemented, like lowering the tax rate, removing controls and so on.
Those are all
the laws have to be implemented.
Sir, let us stick to this act and what are the provisions
what I'm saying
there?
is that the laws have to be implemented.
No, the laws have to be implemented, but there is one of the criticisms or one of the concerns which are being expressed about this is that domestic tax evasion. Whoever does tax evasion domestically, it is considered as a civil offence, right?
Yes.
Mr. Sarkar?
Yes.
And now, but here in this case, it's a criminal offence.
Yes.
So there seems to be a problem with that?
That's the distinction, yes. That's the distinction that I make, which is not too correct. I mean, you have to have an equated kind of a provision, which we do not have.
The fact is that it's not going to be, I think on that ground, it can't be declared illegal.
No, I'm not saying it declared illegal.
I was just on making a point. That
the argument is that people who evade taxes, who evade taxes here within the country, domestic black money is a civil offence, foreign black money is a criminal offence.
Yeah, the fact is, by keeping it as a civil, you were not able to provide a deterrent to people who are stashing money or creating assets outside. Hence, this is to that extent an improvement over it. It is a civil act, civil offence under a 1961 Act. Right. Income Tax Act is of that.
Right.
But under a 2015 Act, which is 44 years later, or 54 years later, where we have learnt that civil...
So will there have to be some kind of amendment to the 1961 Act also to make it a criminal offence, to make domestic black money a criminal offence?
Now that will depend upon the Benami Act.
There are provisions in the 61 Act that which does talk about prosecutions.
Yes.
But those are not implemented. It's not followed. In the letter of the law is not followed. So we stick to just imposing penalties and interest, and half the time you don't even recover that.
Only 3% of the cases really actually what income tax files.
My important point here is, as far as the black money bill is concerned, what about round tripping?
Exactly. What about round tripping?
Yes, that money which has come in as so-called FDI or FII or FPI or whatever you want to call that.
PN route.
That money has, or the PN route, yes. And that money has already come into India. Now, what do you do? Are you going to go after those people? And how do you prove?
Forget going after those people who have already brought in. What about people who are going to bring it in from that route in future? Does this bill take care of it?
This bill does not do anything. This bill is actually, if you read the caption itself, all that it says is undisclosed income and assets,
foreign income and assets,
and brackets, imposition of tax.
Yes.
It is only dealing with that.
Yes.
Nothing more than how the money gets created, how do you minimize it, how do you get it back, etc. I think the electoral promises which were made, etc., in this regard, if those have to be honoured, the government will have to do much more.
Much more than that.
What has been done.
So if you permit me, one point I want to, it's a little bit of a deviation from the normal subject, the subject that we have on hand. The professor talked about the Vanchu Committee. Now, in 1976, Vanchu Committee made some recommendations.
1970.
In 76 it got implemented. So they had those implementations. Yeah. Now one of the proposals which got implemented in the Income Tax Act was that in case you are a company and you have income from, let's say, from shares, purchase and sale of equity shares, then that will be considered as a speculative income or speculative loss. Now, how does that help? I mean, people, the Vanchu Committee had that feeling that this money is being stashed away by showing some speculative losses, some equity shares losses, which is not really part of the business. But you see, the investments today, what is happening, if you look at the global scenario today, the economic scenario, look at Apple, look at any of the big companies, they have a lot of cash in hand. Now, what would they do with this cash in hand? They have to make investments. Now, if you're going to make investments, so obviously there's going to be some return on that investment. Right. Now, if that return comes in and you say that that's speculative. Now, that is not a right way of looking at things. And even if it was done in 1976, why aren't you changing it today?
No, but why? How is that connected to the present?
Because the stringent provisions that you're making right now. So that my point was that if you're trying to make very stringent provisions, they're not going to work.
They're not going to work.
No,
yes.
Two things I'd like to add. One is companies like Google, Starbucks, etc. They have opened companies in Ireland and other low tax haven countries, and through that they have been recycling their income, and that is what many Indian companies have been doing, that there's 90 tax havens and they set up companies in tax havens and route their profits through that so that they can lower their tax liability. Second point is that out of...
and that doesn't get covered in this bill.
That will not get covered in this because most of them are...
The finance minister seems to have made a statement in the parliament saying that there are no tax havens.
There are no tax havens.
That's one. Second is that you see, of the black incomes that are generated in the country, 90% remain here, only 10% goes abroad.
Absolutely.
So it's only a tiny part, and that's linked to the black income generation. So you have to tackle the problem here. If you don't tackle the problem here, and this bill does not address that problem at all.
No, that I think the finance minister himself made it clear that this is purely to do with income abroad and black money abroad. And they are now bringing in other legislations. The Benami Transactions Bill, Cabinet has approved today. So that will take care to some extent of the... we are now joined in by Vikas Singh, former Additional Solicitor General of India. Mr. Vikas Singh, we have been discussing this black money bill which has been passed in the Parliament today. The question now is, how is this bill going to improve or, act as a deterrent? One of the things is, one question which I have for you is, we have had this called money laundering bill so far. How is that bill different from this? How is this bill going to, help help us to ensure that black money abroad is curbed and no such outflow happens from now onwards?
Well, firstly, it's a complete misnomer to call it a black money bill. This is not a black money bill at all. This is a bill to tax income that people earn abroad if they want to bring that money back to India. So it's not a black money bill at all. It's already, this provision, this taxing is already there under the present law. What you have done is that the penalty you have increased to 3 to 10 years as against the earlier, the penalty which is lower now.
Yes.
And secondly, what you have done is that you have made this a scheduled offence under the prevention of, you have made it a scheduled offence under the Prevention of Money Laundering Act. So what happens is that the Enforcement Directorate gets the jurisdiction to consider a case for money laundering when this kind of money is sought to be brought back into the country, because now you made it into a scheduled offence. But if you ask me, the real problem of bringing black money back or to tackle the black money problem which is stashed abroad would have been only by bringing in a law by declaring that every person who holds money abroad, his money will be forfeited to the state if he is not able to justify the means through which he has earned that money or the banking channels through which he has transferred this money. That's the only serious way of bringing back this huge money which is supposed to be lying in various banks all over the world. Because the moment you make it an offense that people who are not able to justify as to where this, then how they earned this money, whether it was legitimate or not, and also if they are not able to justify the banking channels through which this money was transferred, and if that holding that money itself becomes an offense, then every country in which banking system this money is part will be then obliged to share this information, because then it will be an offense to have that money.
Yeah, Mr. Vikas,
to share this information in law.
Mr. Vikas, sorry to intervene. Sorry to intervene. No, what I'm saying is, the point which you're making is well taken. In fact, there are other people, who are also been talking about making this a national wealth if it has not been, declared. But already there are people who are saying that the penalties and the punishment which is being given here in this new act is going to be very harsh. So, do you think that these punishments which are there in this act are too harsh, or will it act as a, or should do you think it should be there so that it acts as a deterrent?
Well, if you ask my personal opinion, this higher punishment may not stand the test of judicial scrutiny, because for the same offence within India, you can't have a different this thing and have a. That is number one. And number two, by having this harsh penalty for people who want to bring back money from abroad, I mean people who earned money and bring that money into this country, into the Indian banking system, is really neither here nor there, because it's more to do with these companies which are the foreign companies which are having their feet in several countries, and that kind of income if they don't declare. So really speaking, in a way, you are discouraging foreign investment in some sense, because you will be actually making a large number of, because today the world is a global village, if you ask me.
Okay.
So in fact, Mr. in India can earn income abroad.
No, sorry, Mr. Vikas. Sorry, Mr. Vikas, saying, in fact, just before you came, we were discussing it. The question of this new law doesn't even tackle the issue of bringing or investments through tax havens and things like that. Yeah, I'll come back to you, but I think Professor Arun Kumar has a point here.
I think there is a scope for violation of this law.
Yeah, one second.
I'm not saying that this is tackling.
One second, sir. 1 second, Mr. Singh.
The tax proposed is 30%. The proposed penalty is 90%. So that crosses 100%.
Yes.
Now, how is that? How will that act as a catalyst for me to bring back the money? So these
No,
things,
but this is only in the case of repeated offence.
yes,
Not the first time.
But still, you have to keep
if you're
it below.
going to be repeatedly doing this, then you have to do the. Then you have to be
after 6 months, once you cross the 6 months, you could be.
Yes.
So you could be 90%.
I think we have to see the intent of the bill. The intent of the bill is to see what has been held abroad and what's the income abroad. It's nothing to do with what's being brought back legally into the banks. So in that sense, I disagree with the argument that people will not bring their money back. They're not going to bring the money back anyway. So we are only trying to tackle the money held abroad, the incomes held abroad. So it's nothing to do with investment here.
Exactly.
So
okay.
therefore,
but one important thing which I want you to, because what the finance minister says is that we discussed the aspect of if there is any provision here where defaulters can be identified. The identification of defaulters, there's no such provision here.
At all. No.
But he talks about this, the G20 apparently has its global transparency standard and things like that, where common reporting standard is going to be established.
Automatic exchange of information.
Common exchange of information is going to be established.
Let me say, so that
is one of the ways in which
automatic exchange of information is about your declared income, not about your undeclared income. If you've not declared your income anywhere, then it doesn't come under that G20 provision. Similarly, double taxation avoidance agreement is about your white income and not about your black income. So if you know that the first DTA was signed with the US in 1990 and not one name has come under the DTA till now for the last 25 years. The provisions were modified in 2009 with Switzerland and so on, and nothing has happened after that. India's finance ministry team went to Switzerland and they said, sorry, we cannot give you names. So in other words, the only way we have got names is through stolen data. The LGT case where Mr. Kleibe sold it to the German government, and the other is Mr. Faviani of HSBC who sold it to the French government. And it's a shame on the government that the first 620 names that came were stolen. Second names came from ICIJ, even though Mr. Faviani was saying that only 1% of the names have been revealed.
Yeah, okay.
The government did not get any names.
Mr. Dua, one of the concerns again is that this new act gives some kind of unbridled powers to the tax authorities. They can just go haywire.
It's been said that this will bring back Inspector Raj.
Exactly.
And that it is draconian. And as was pointed out also that the punishment is too severe. I'm not in full agreement with this. I think that a lighter law, where the penalties were lighter, it hasn't quite worked. The 61 Act.
Right.
So you certainly needed to review your system of prosecution, your punishments, etc., and the deterrents which are being imposed, or the higher punishments, penalties which have been imposed, to some extent, will certainly help in the future.
Mr. Sarkar?
With due respect, I have a little bit of a disagreement on that, because I feel that if you go back to the Income Tax Act of India, we had a time when the tax was 97.5%. Right. And that was the time, if you look at the collections at that time and today's collection, I think 30%, and now which is proposed to be brought down to 25% in the case of companies. I think that's a very good rate. So that does help me in disclosing income. So you have to have a situation in which you need how you attract that money back in India, because please remember.
So these harsher steps are not going to happen.
No, they're not going to.
I think the tax rates are the same. 30% for foreign income, 30% for Indian income.
But this 30% will have no deductions. No, all those deductions, nothing will work.
Not even the carry forward losses.
Not even the carry forward losses.
Yeah.
Those are if you have not declared it.
Yes.
You cannot claim any tax credits, any deductions if you don't declare the income.
Yeah, that's right.
But if you declare it, everything,
then you get all the benefits.
So this is the deterrent, saying that if you want the credits of what payments you have made overseas, elsewhere, you will get the benefit. But please be honest, declare it.
Okay, sir. I think we are completely run out of time. But this is a very interesting, new law which has been brought about. How it will be implemented, how it will work is something which we'll have to wait and watch. But as you have heard, this is not going to bring back all that stashed black money abroad. Is something which all my panelists are agreed upon. So it will only act as a deterrent in future. And how it will act, we'll have to wait and watch. Thanks to all my guests. Please keep watching. We'll come back with another issue on The Big Picture same time tomorrow.